is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing orthodontist Ryan Hungate, DDS, MS. He's an orthodontist, CEO, and founder of Simplifeye. He's a practicing orthodontist. Prior to going into dentistry, Dr. Hungate worked for Apple Inc., designing the Apple retail workflow with industry veteran and Apple SVP Ron Johnson, SVP Senior Vice President Ron Johnson. He then attended Indiana University Dental School for his DDS and completed his specialty training in orthodontics at the University of Southern California. Throughout his academic years, Dr. Hungate aspired to create a better workflow for university clinics and eventually private practitioners. He is responsible for pioneering new methods of orthognathic surgical planning and created a patented and commercialized 3D surgical splint that increases surgical accuracy. Dr. Hungate is now creating new ways to implement innovative live chat technology that allows doctors to schedule more new patients and even hold instant teledentistry visits. He is also using modern payment infrastructure to reduce overhead and bad debt. He currently lives in New York, with his amazing wife, Laura, but he is so sweet. When New York had the lockdown, he decided to go back to Indiana, where he went to dental school, to stay with mom throughout the ordeal. How's mom and dad doing?
Doing great. Yep, just all holed up right here in Kokomo, Indiana.
Kokomo, Indiana. And where was Dave Letterman from? Hall University?
Yeah, Muncie, Indiana. I actually went to Ball State University where he went. That's right.
Ball State University. I love Dave Letterman, and I love the fact that he never fixed his diastema. I thought that was...
That's right.
That's why I like Madonna and Dave Letterman, because like when I was bald, I remember when I was in college, before it was cool to be bald, back then it was like, something's wrong with you, and everybody would always say, well, are you going to wear a wig? Are you going to get hair transplants? And it's like, why don't you just not look at my head, dude? My head's fine. But
That's
anyway,
right.
Ryan, I wanted to get you on the show today, ASAP, because you have a teledentistry play, and there's this little thing going around called COVID-19. First of all, can you give us a COVID-19 update? You're from New York, and that is, I guess is it as bad as Washington?
Yeah, it's about 10 times worse. So we now, because of testing, I believe, we've reached over 10,000 cases. So we went from, and that happened in a day. So we went from having 3,000 cases to 10,000 cases basically overnight. They started to implement drive-through testing, which is fantastic. And I'm sure that the numbers are way farther than that. I know, personally, quite a few people that have been exposed to it, a couple others that actually have had it, and they have, relatives who have so far, a couple have actually died from it. So it's real. It's out there. It's not going to get any better. And I think you're going to kind of get from New York and Italy 2.0, or they might start calling Italy New York. So I hope that doesn't happen, but you might see that.
It's called Dentistry Uncensored. I don't want to talk about anything everyone agrees on, but let's play devil's advocate. That was a formal position in the Catholic Church for 2,000 years, when people would want to say, I want to nominate Ryan Hungate to be a saint. They had a formal department, the devil's advocate, that would say, no, indeed, he was a Hoosier, and we're not having any Hoosier saints around here. And if he could prove that you were really a Hoosier, But anyway, so a lot of them are saying, so 2 years ago, 60,000 people died from the flu, and I've got to go broke at my dental office. They're young. They got student loans. They got payments. What would you tell that young dentist who's just beating his head against the wall, thinking, why are we doing this compared to the influenza? What would you say to that person?
Yeah, I would take a moment and see, there's a reason that the government is taking these steps. They've seen what's happening. They see what the curve looks like right now. I think this is a lot more virulent, and I think it's a lot more, I guess it's easier to catch than the last stuff that maybe we just got a little bit more luck on the last time, right? All I can say is that, after we get our feet back underneath us, which right now, last week was the week that we all got knocked off our feet. I've seen people, who had 30 locations who, laid off 220 people. I spoke to a consultant that laid off 1,100 people. Last week, in my opinion, was the week where we all shit our pants, right? We were all nervous and we made extreme. They always say when you cut deep. right? Because otherwise it's a slow bleed and everybody has these problems. Having a startup, I've had to go through this before where you have to make, really tough decisions to make sure that things stay alive. And what's nice is the government's starting to do some really cool stuff that allows, things that normally can't happen. So laying people off and still being able to pay for their health insurance, which is fantastic. So, take it step by step is the biggest thing that I can say. I can tell you, I have $900,000 in student loans right now, right? I'm one of those people. I got 230 from Indiana and another 300 from USC, and USC is not known for being cheap. So I think that, that's something that I'm going through as well. But if you just take it step by step every single day, I think you'll find that there's going to be some really cool technologies that come out of this. And, it just might not look the same in the future, but at the same time, it will come back. The nice thing is that we still are allowed as doctors to see emergency patients. We are desperately needed to do that. That's another thing that we need to focus on, because if we stop seeing our emergency patients, they're going to end up at the hospital, and that's not a cool place to be.
Now, you went to USC for ortho school, right? And you actually
Correct.
got accepted because you were on the badminton team and your mom paid 150. Was it badminton or
I think rowing was
rowing? Were you a rowing
the
champion?
crew team. Yeah, the crew. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my
you can see
gosh.
with my broad shoulders, right?
Well, that must be pretty cool. I'm jealous that you went to a university where people go through scandals to get in. I went to Creighton and UMKC, and no one ever bribed anybody a Starbucks latte to get into those schools, but I'm glad they took me. So does anything you're doing affect our current situation in teledentistry?
Absolutely. So it's really interesting with teledentistry. I can tell you, as of 10 weeks ago, if you would have asked me about teledentistry, I would have told you it's a little bit hokey, because I think dentistry is very unique in that every single teledentistry appointment let's say back in December that you should have been a gold at getting the patient into your practice, right? Because you could have at least done a cleaning on them. You would have found 2 or 3 fillings, and you go from there, right? Now it's different. Now, all of a sudden, you've lost a bit of your support crew, right? Maybe you're down to a skeleton crew of, you've got a part-time front desk person, you've got a part-time assistant that's going to come in and help you with emergency appointments, and you're down to yourself, right? And what I always tell people and tell these doctors is, remember, first, you've done this before, right? This is where you started, and it sucks that you're back to this point, but at the same time, remember, you've done it before. The second thing is now you're going to have technology on your side. So we at Simplifeye, we've developed some really cool stuff that truly, I have one very firm belief that if you add more work to somebody's table, it ain't going to work. Right. So we started from the very beginning in developing something, an entire workflow where nobody really has to touch it. So not only do we have the teledentistry side, which is really cool, and we'll talk about it, but we also have a live chat side. And I know that you've talked with plenty of people about live chat before, but what's interesting about ours is we actually man the chat for you, right? We're available 24/7. We're the only ones that do that. We answer within 7 seconds, and we speak 7 different languages fluently. On top of that, we have over 200 people chatting 24/7. So what's nice is now you don't have to worry about us getting sick. You don't have to worry about us calling in, for work or whatever it might be, right? We can be available 24/7. So now what we're doing is we're telling all of our doctors to set up basically a perfect triage platform. So if you think about it, we tell our doctors, first step, change your voicemail to say, hey, during this time, we're going to be answering all of your questions via our website, via 24/7 live chat. So that's your first triage point, because if somebody really is an urgent appointment, they're going to definitely do that, right? If not, they'll probably give up right there. So that's your first choke point, right? Okay. So somebody then moves to your website. They go to hungateorthodontics.com. Fantastic. Now they get there, they're greeted by one of our chatters 24/7, right? But let's say it's at 2 p.m. It's on a Wednesday. Now the chatter can have a conversation with them and say, hey, what can I help you with? They can say, oh, my jaw's absolutely killing me. Now, what's nice is our chatters have the ability to ask if they're either a current or they're a brand new patient. So depending on what you tell us, we can either talk to that patient or we don't have to. Now we triage that patient, right? We basically say, okay, this person has pain. I can tell you now, would you like to talk with the doctor live? because we know when you're actually going to be available via these virtual consultations. Then what happens is our chatters have the ability to collect insurance information up front. And I don't know if you've seen what's happening in the last 48 hours, but the ADA just released something really cool. All of these insurance companies that used to not do anything for telemedicine, right? All of a sudden, they're allowing teledental appointments. So right now they released it. I've got the list right here. Delta Dental, Aetna, Liberty, MetLife, United Concordia, Principal, Guardian, Emeritus, and then everybody else is working on it, because I can tell you what, Blue Cross Blue Shield's not going to let anybody get a leg up on them. So I guarantee they're coming really soon. Not to mention Medicaid. They are all allowing telemedicine, teledental appointments right now, and you can bill them for it. So we'll get into the math on that here in just a second. But what's nice is our chatters.
I wish you would post that on Dental Town and Ortho Town.
Absolutely. I'll do it right after this.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I'll give it to you guys to post as well.
Yeah. But I'd love it if you post it, because you're the man. You're the dog. And plus, we have nothing else to do. Anyway, continue. So, well, it's kind of funny because, gosh, what a difference a month makes. I mean,
it's wild.
I remember there were some people whining. They're always whining that, why didn't we get more prepared in December? And I'm like, dude, I remember December. I mean, Christmas is the biggest holiday in all of North America. In fact, to put that in perspective, China's New Year was in January, and they didn't even put the brakes on in January. So it wasn't until, the West was done with Christmas and the Chinese were done with the Chinese New Year, but where you could even address this. My gosh, how things have changed. But go back to Christmas, you're an orthodontist. Teledentistry was a 4-letter word, SDC, Smiles Direct Club, which, by the way, I am sorry to have to interrupt this regular programming schedule to ask you, would you be buying Smiles Direct Club? My gosh, how it's what is it down to now?
Right now?
It's down to $4. I mean, it is.
Jesus
what was their IPO price?
26 or 23 or something like that.
So I know you're an orthodontist, so Smiles Direct Club would be like whatever the opposite of holy water is. But my gosh, is I mean, when you do an IPO in the 20s and you're at $4 a share, is there anything there? Would Ryan the orthodontist be picking up shares at $4 for Smiles Direct Club, or no?
If they made a pivot to a different business plan, it would be interesting, right? They came out right away against doctors, and that's not what you do, right? I mean, look at what Invisalign did. They did fantastic, right? They came out first. They were for orthodontists. They kind of promised that they'll never ever, go to general dentistry. Of course they're going to. So they went to general dentistry, and now they're slowly migrating into having this direct to consumer type, platform. But at the same time, they still gain the favor of the doctor. On the other hand, you got Smile Direct Club that just said, F the doctor, I'm good, right? And they took everything away. And now all of a sudden they found out that, I don't know, we have a little bit of lobbying under our sleeves, and we can say you need to take an x-ray. And all of a sudden you went from California jumping on that bandwagon to every other big state jumping on that bandwagon. And what do you know? You go from $23 to $4, right? And these large companies, it's great to be $1 billion company. It's awesome. But guess what happens when you get there? You're slow. Right. And you lose that quick movement that you can make. And now all of a sudden, if you burnt bridges with these doctors, I think that the Candids of the world, and I really think that OrthoFX is doing some really cool stuff. And there's another one called Dandy out there where they're partnering with doctors instead that really don't like to do Invisalign cases.
These are publicly traded?
No, they're not. Those startups. So those are the startups out there. Candid's the biggest one out of all of them.
Is Candid
and I know
publicly? Is Candid
not yet?
Yeah.
They've raised about $100 million though, so they're pretty darn big.
So to be succinct, you're still not a fan of Smiles Direct Club, even though it's gone from $21 to $3. And I agree. I was cringing when they started attacking and suing dentists from dental boards and all these things like that. I thought, oh my God. I mean, it reminds me of when people want to, murder their way to world peace. I mean,
Yeah.
screw their way to virginity. I mean, it's just, but so let's go to Align technology though, because you're an orthodontist, and Align has gone from $334 to $127. It's lost 2/3 of its value. Is that a buy for you, or does it still have plenty
That's
of blood
starting to
go?
look at, I think that's got some more blood to go. The ones that I would be jumping on right now are the ones that are going to guaranteed get bailouts, right? The Boeings of the world, the Deltas of the world, possibly some cruise liners, whatever it might be. The ones that literally, if they went out, we'd be in a lot of trouble. I heard that, Boeing is the buy of the century. It's down to $95 right now, and it's usually trading at $230. I mean, that's a no brainer. As long as they don't do something really stupid. The number one supplier of, planes to the armed services isn't just going to go out of business. So I think that there's a few of them like that. Don't get me wrong, as an orthodontist, I love Invisalign. I think that they have a fantastic technology, and blood's in the water on clear aligners anyways. Their
That's what I want to ask you
up.
about, because the patents are up. I mean, if you were on Shark Tank, Ryan, obviously the smartest guy on Shark Tank by a mile is Mr. Wonderful, because he's the only bald guy on the program, and it's always the bald guy in the room. He the first thing he would ask is, where's your intellectual property? Where's the protective motor on my business? And it's gone.
Yeah.
And now I'm counting up to 40 different clear aligner companies around the world. So does Align losing all that patent, is that why their stock's gone from 300 to 100? Is that a big macro driving force, or not really? Or do you think they're still
not
in
really?
a leadership
They were
position?
They were doing really well before this, actually. Like, they were climbing, surprisingly, right? Because they're making it easier and easier. The one thing they have a huge head start on, and I'm sure you've seen it, is their software, right? What's interesting is everybody thinks of them as an aligner company. They're not. They're a software company that also makes aligners, right? So that software that they have is so much better than everybody else's in one major way. It's their prediction engine, right? I always think of Invisalign software as a sales tool for me. So if you come in, I scan you. It's the first thing I do. I scan you. And then what I do is I basically show you what your future is going to be. That thing in 30 seconds can pump out what your smile looks like a year from now. If you can say no to your future, then I don't know how else you could sell that. You really kind of have to fall over dead not to be able to sell something like that. That's why I like Invisalign stuff. Everybody else is trying to create these prediction engines. They just can't do it quite as well. It's not as sexy. Now, what's interesting is now you have this downtime where nobody's doing anything. If I was these other companies, I'd be moving my ass to make a prediction engine, to make that software sexy and really stupid easy to use for all these doctors. Because now all of a sudden, if you make it really, really, really easy, now more people will start to adopt it. So you've got these guys like Spark, which is making this beautiful software. You've got the Clear Corrects. Their software just still is not quite there. Spark's the closest one, though. That's the new one out of Danaher and Vista. If you've seen them, they're making a really cool one at Ormco.
So in Vista, let's see where it finished today. Crazy. They just spun it off this year, and it's already it finished today at 11. So it's gone 52 weeks. It's gone from 33 to 11. What do you make of that?
I mean, that one's not too bad, because if you think about it, so you remember that's Cavo Kerr, Ormco, right? That's Pelton and Crane. So they make all the chairs, the nice stuff. The biggest one, they're big sexy, is Nobel, right? So everybody forgets that the Nobel is part of that group.
Implants Direct.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and Implants Direct.
And
that's
Implants
right.
Direct. I mean, that's a crazy. But you're an orthodontist, so Invista, they own Ormco. And what were you saying about the Ormco clear aligners software? You're liking it?
Their software is really nice. So what's interesting is they're the first ones that made something for an orthodontist. And Ormco's always been that company, that they're like, I'm for the orthodontist, only for the orthodontist. That's the only downside of that, is that right now they're not marketing to general dentists just yet. I don't know whether they will or whether they won't. If I were a betting human, I would say, yeah, they eventually will. But at least in the near term, within the next couple of years, they're definitely not doing that. They might spin something off and put it under the Cavo Kerr brand. I wouldn't be surprised if they do that. They kind of do that with their Dexis and Cavo Kerr brand every so often. But no, it's a great software. It's easy to use. It's really probably number 2 to Invisalign, in my opinion.
So
Check it out.
and now what are you doing with your Simplifeye? What is your main focus on Simplifeye?
So our main thing right now
by
is
the way, I read about
yeah.
you first and posted it on Dental Town first. When TechCrunch came out with an article on you, it was Simplifeye gets $3 million to make wearables part of your doctor flow, and it was a big talking about it on Dental Town. Simplifeye iWatch program. So
it's funny.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is we met you guys. So I'm sure you know Dr. Tom Jacoby, right?
Tom Jacoby, yes, he was. Yeah, I've known him. He's been the editor of Dental Town magazine since 2000, so 20 years.
Christ is a carpenter, right? There you go. So
my gosh,
he was. I have one really funny story. The way we met Dental Town, we were out in Washington D.C. It was our first show, and we invited him to show him our new technology with our Apple Watch out there. And so we went all out, we rented out a bar and everything. And I invited half of Henry Schein, and he was there, and we were all, drinking and keeping on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this bill's going to be insane. So everybody kind of cleared out, and Tom and me and a couple other guys were left. And I went up and I go, what's the damage? Is this going to be bad? And they go, well, you still got to spend $700. And I didn't realize at the time that half of Henry Schein was all Mormon. So everybody was drinking Sprites the whole time. So nobody was drinking any booze. So me and Tom and a couple other guys spent $700 on a bar tab with the best whiskey and best food you could possibly imagine. It was a blast.
Oh,
so
my
anyway,
gosh,
that's how I got to be Dental Town.
Yeah, and that's why I love the Mormons the most, because in dental school we had Scott Dahlquist, and he was our Mormon dry taxi driver. We could go out to any bar and get all Irished up, and Scott would be drinking water, and we'd have a nice drive home, and it was great. But Tom's just a great guy. So we're
we started with the Apple Watch.
Talk about that TechCrunch article, because that got everybody talking about wearables on Dental Town.
Absolutely.
So what was all that about?
So that's what we started with. So we are a venture-backed company. We've raised, just over $20 million now. Our initial seed round was at, $3 million. It was really cool. We raised from First Round Capital. You'd know them because they were the first money in Uber. They're also in every other big thing out there. The other one is Soft Tech Ventures. They were the first money in Fitbit. They're now called Uncork Ventures. And the last one is Felicis Ventures. And they're not as well known, but they've been in some huge wins lately. So Flexport, which is, multi-billion-dollar company. And then also you would know Dollar Shave Club. And the last guy that everybody always likes to hear about is Joe Montana. He's one of our investors. And that's the one that I always say that my dad knows of. So that's why we got him.
So what's the connection between the smartwatch and Simplifeye?
So it's interesting. We started with the smartwatch because back in the day, right, it was always kind of like, how do I modify what I did at Apple and bring it over here? And while I was at Apple, I was actually in charge of the workflow for every single every single Apple retail store. And it was a lot of fun. Working directly for Ron Johnson. He was a previous CEO of Target. He worked directly for Tim Cook. He literally reported to him, and then Tim Cook to Steve Jobs at the time. So it was a really cool time to be there. I was there during 2007 when the iPhone came out, so it was even more crazy. But I was in charge of that triage program where we would triage somebody as they walked in, then we would route them to somebody who knew what they were talking about, and then I found the threshold of taking steps towards the front door with a receipt, where we would literally kick you out without you knowing. And it started to make people, these retail stores look a little bit more empty and more people come in. So it was all about the workflow. So I always wanted to adapt that to the dental world. And that's why I went to dental school, to really learn about dentistry, because I'd seen how terrible all the software was and thought maybe I could really do some damage. So we started with the Apple Watch, and actually our name Simplifeye, the EYE on the end, actually came from Google Glass to start. So that's where that weird EYE comes in there. And then we moved to the Apple Watch because that got cool at the time. I learned a really hard lesson. Dental offices don't change, right? Front desks don't change. Assistants don't change. Doctors, they have the best intentions in the world. They thought that the Apple Watch was the best thing ever because we would tell a doctor where to go, why to go there. It was amazing. And then all of a sudden, we found out it was more work. So it failed miserably, right? So 70% of our offices completely churned out. So that's why we moved to live chat, because I swore to God, I would never make another product where an office has to do something more, especially with the training. Our training for the Apple Watch product used to be an hour, hour and a half. Now our training for our live chat product, 5 minutes. We ask one question. Do you know how to open an email? If the answer is yes, you're trained. It's that easy. So yeah, that's where that all came from. And we pivoted out of that into what we do now. So we launched our live chat in 2018, went from 0 to 1,000 offices in that year. Now, ever since then, we've been doubling every single year since, and we have over 6,000 doctors using the platform now. It's really exciting.
Well, you got a couple of great threads on OrthoTown too, but I'm not allowed to go to OrthoTown because I'm not an orthodontist. Well, it's just not cool. It's like going to a party you're not invited to. I wish you would answer those two posts on. But But you're an orthodontist. Is Simplifeye more for orthodontists as opposed to general dentists? It's not ortho specific.
Not at all. Yeah. So we are literally probably 80% general and 20%, I like to say, other, right? So it's all the other specialties. Just it's what, you would think the dental community is really made up of, right? So we are across the board. We serve every single specialty. We even have some other specialties outside of that, the dermatology. I like to say retail healthcare. So if anybody, I like to say, that cares about a new patient. Now, what we've moved to recently is we moved to more, instead of talking about getting you new patients, it's more so really being that new front desk that you really need to help get those patients and figure out whether they're urgent or not to get you to the next step, which we just released, which is teledentistry.
And what made the next step be teledentistry? What was the driving force to move that to the top of the list?
So it's interesting. I was hoping I wouldn't have to, if that tells you anything. I saw this coming. It was January 23rd. I remember talking to my head of operations and head of engineering and saying, if this shit makes it to our shores, we are in a lot of trouble. And if it gets really bad, then we are all of a sudden this thing called teledentistry, which I always thought was not going to be a big deal, will be gigantic, and it will be the lifeblood of how we survive. And I started off with 2 engineers working on a teledentistry solution. So worst case scenario, I could throw it in the trash, but best case scenario, if we needed it, I could do a thing where I make all of my engineers stay up for a week and a half straight and we pump it out. And that's what we did about 3 weeks ago. I made all of the engineers stay up and we came out with it. And ever since then, what I've done is we've literally been, let's just say it's a bad time to be selling in dentistry. I think it's rude, if anything, to be selling in dentistry. So what we did is we said, you know what, we want to, at Simplifeye, do as much as we can to help out the dental community. So we are literally giving our product away free for the next 60 days to help doctors get back on their feet. So that's what we're doing.
So how do they get your product for free? So your website, do they go to your website? What do they do to get free?
So I'll post a link for it. And I think we'll post it on this podcast as well. But I made a specific link for it. It's bit.ly. So it's basically if you go to bit.ly slash, and I'm pulling that up real quick so we have it. So it's bit.ly slash SIMP, the number 60 day. So simp 60 day. So bit.ly slash simp 60 day. And we'll post it. I think we'll be able to post it on this as well. But basically that'll allow you to hop on there. We're not even asking for a credit card or nothing. We just really want to help people right now. You can also go to Simplifeye and just chat with us too. If you go to simplifeye.com and you chat with us and say, hey, I want the 60-day trial, that's even easier. So that's the other thing that we can do too.
So I hit that bit.ly thing and I connected to Simplifeye Connect Training.
Yep, that's what it is. So
is that the 30-day?
That's it.
That's the 30-day deal?
You got it.
Okay, so tell my...
Yep.
Okay, so how do my homies find it? Actually, I just sent you... if you search for Simplifeye on Dentaltown, I sent you the link to the thread on Dentaltown and OrthoTown, so you could post it there. But if someone's listening to you and they're driving, how would they find your link? They're driving right now. Where would they go?
So really, the easiest thing in the world is you go to simplifeye.com. So
But it's not
SIMP.
.com, it's .co.
No. We have .com as well. Yep, .com, baby.
Oh, but your website, it's .co. So it works. If you go .com, it goes to .co. So if you own .com, why did you prefer .co?
Everything was built when we first built everything. We owned .co, and then we had to save up. There was a troll that owned our .com down in Florida somewhere, and we had to save up to buy it. It's funny now looking at it; it was really cheap, but as a startup, just having a couple $100,000, we couldn't afford it right off the bat.
Huh. And okay, so if you go to simplifeye.com, and it'll go to .co, okay. Oh, so would you click the request demo button or to get the free?
Yep, you can do request demo. You can absolutely do that, and we'll give you a call. And everything right now is 60 days free. So when we sign you up, and even if you are an existing Simplifeye user, we're actually offering the teledentistry portion of that free of charge as well. So if you're an existing Simplifeye user and you have not yet activated the teledentistry portion, please give us a call and we'll activate that as well. Okay, so we've got all that stuff up and good to go.
Okay, so help me. So the first button I see is Amplify. What is Amplify?
Yep. That's our 24/7 live chat. So that's what we call our live chat. And the teledentistry portion is called Connect. So we call it Simplify Connect. Simplify Amplify.
Here's what I believe from everyone I've talked to is that, in a nutshell, for America, 100 people have to land on your website for 3 to convert to call your office.
Yep.
3 people have to call your office for your person answering the phone to convert 1 to come in. 3 people have to come in with a measurable radiographic interproximal cavity for 1 to get it done. So when you look at the dental industry and you say, well, these guys are doing good, man, they're collecting $750,000. Yeah, to do $750,000, you had to have 3 times that amount get diagnosed and treatment plan, because that's the 1/3 that was accepted. So to do a filling, 3 had to come in. For 3 to come in, 9 had to call. And for 9 to call, 300 had to land on your website. And basically, people are telling me that when you have a chat function on your website, that normal 3% conversion is again from the chat. So now you're up to 6%. Do you believe those numbers?
Yeah.
Or do those numbers sound reasonable to you in dentistry?
They do. Absolutely. Yeah. And I can even tell you what I see internally. So usually there's a number of people that come to your website that chat. And that's all changing right now too, because right now, if you tell people to go to your website and chat with you, it's a little different, right? So we've always recommended that all of our users tell their, on your voicemail, hey, sorry, you couldn't catch us right now. You can either leave a message or we could chat with you right now live. And guess what they always do? Click and they go right to the website. So that's one thing. But we see and we notice that aside, that 5% of the people that usually come to your website, all this COVID stuff aside, 5% of the people that come to your website will chat with us. Now, what's really cool about Simplifeye is because we answer so fast and so we're so good at what we do, right now, 40% of the people that we chat with, we convert to live human beings walking through your front door. Now, that's why we're special.
My gosh, so many thoughts in my head. And one of the things that these young dentists have to realize is, I've seen it for 30 years, is the worst bias in business is what you bring to the table. So like, say you're a young person and you want to place a bunch of implants, but you're on Facebook and Instagram and blah, blah, blah. Grandma's not on those websites. And I have friends that do direct mail into nursing home areas in Sun City and Sun Lakes, and every time they mail 100 flyers, somebody comes in for an implant. And I don't know how many people on Snapchat need an implant. But I know older dentists like me might sit there and say, well, I would never chat on a website. That's stupid. Well, it doesn't matter if it's stupid to you. You're a small sample size, and you have a liver spot on your head the size of a quarter, okay? So my question to you is, do people who chat, are they different? Are they as particular demographic that some of my older drinking buddies aren't?
What's interesting is they're kind of across the board. I mean, we have 95-year-old people chat in, because if you think about it, a 95-year-old won't download an app, right? If you go, hey, great grandma, go ahead and go download an app for me. No way in hell, right? But if you also tell great grandma, go ahead and go to pull up the web browser on the tablet, the little Amazon tablet that somebody bought you, go to Facebook, they'll log right in, and they can actually use Google and search, right? So they can do all that stuff. They'll never download an app. So what's interesting is they can find a doctor, they can get to the website. Now, I want you to think and picture any general dental website. They're all crap, right? I've seen them all. I've seen the most beautiful, well done, $10,000 a month websites. They all suck. It's not ESPN.com. It's not Nordstrom. It's not Amazon. I don't want to be there, right? They're there for one reason, to decide whether or not they're going to schedule with you. And it's really interesting because you mentioned it earlier. There's Smile Direct Club, right? Right now, if Smile Direct Club is doing well, which obviously they're not doing perfect, but they're still doing a few $100 million a year. That's pretty damn good, right? So at the end of the day, if the general public doesn't know which doctor is better than the other, because if you think about it, the last time, your buddy was going in for surgery, everybody is like, oh, he did Peyton Manning's ACL, he did, nobody has ever had like the second best doctor, right? They always have the best doctor of something, because that's what the general public thinks. So if that's the case, there's this really powerful stat that I always like. 70% of patients book with the person who responds first. That's simple.
Yeah.
Right? It's that easy. And if we're responding within 7 seconds, we win. Right? Do you think that your front desk is going to call them back the next day first? Do you think they're going to call them back?
Here's the sad thing about the dentist. I mean, like when you go do a molar endo, you lose all space and time. I mean, you get into that thing, and the next thing you know, when you stand up, you look at the clock, an hour's gone. And you're like, dude, I was in that room for 3 minutes, and now so you have no idea for an hour what the hell's going on up front. And then when they walk out at the end of the day, you say, hey, how many incoming calls did you have today? They have no idea. You say, how many went to voicemail? They have no idea. They have all they know is, well, Shirley's been with me for 10 years. Surely she answers all the phones, and surely and it's like, no, Shirley doesn't do any of that stuff. So they have no measurements. So they don't know. I've seen a lot of data that when, like DSOs, when they don't have a call center up and running, when they have their call center up and running, they get 7 overflow calls a day that result to a patient coming in that day. So how does the guy across the street compete with that when he doesn't even know when he's doing a root canal that calls are going to voicemail and no one's ever going to answer him? So my duty is in trying to help owner operators compete against DSOs. That's why I bring people on like you. How can a small guy compete with my buddy Rick Workman, who has 1,000 dental offices and a call center?
Yeah, the only way they could do it is through automation, right? Because you can't scaling your business is the hardest thing you'll ever do. I always, I was just saying it a minute ago. It's easy to build a flying car once. Now build 10 million of them, right? That's completely different, right? Look, Tesla is struggling with building that many electric cars. If they're struggling with scalability like that, we would struggle with that too. That's why it's so amazing what Dr. Workman's done, right? What Pacific has done, what all these guys are doing. But at the same time, what's interesting is that we, as a much smaller practitioner, we need to rely on our experience, right? The experience that you can give somebody in the practice. Now, the only thing that you can do to win that is to get them in. If you can't get them in, if you can't win that war, then there's no way that you can even show them your experience. So I always tell people, you've already won on the experience. They'll never, Pacific, all these other guys, they won't beat you on experience. They're going to try, and they're getting better and better at it, right? I don't know if you've walked into an Aspen lately, but it's getting nice. But at the same time, you're still going to give them like, I know your middle name. I knew your uncle. I knew your grandma beforehand. That's special. And it's something that's very difficult to give. But the trick is you got to get them in. And the only way you can do it is by buying technology that helps you automate and gives you those systems that those other guys have the time to spend $3 or $4 or $5 million to deploy.
Yeah, Elon Musk, I love his tenacity. I mean, he even married and divorced the same woman twice. I mean, that is commitment. He married Miss Riley in 2010, divorced in 2012, tried it again in 2013 and 2016. I mean, that is not a guy who gives up easily. I think, is he the only one that's married and divorced the same woman twice?
At least the big one, like a multi-billionaire, yeah. I will see if Bezos can pull it off.
Oh my gosh. And Bezos, that's showing on teledentistry too. The fact that automation in delivering, I mean, Jeff Bezos, he wants to hire 100,000 more people because things are going to be really different for a long time after coronavirus. I want to ask you a question. So. A lot of people are already saying that we've all known in dentistry for 50 years, when you walk into a dental office, it has that smell. And it's because the high speed is like a miniature jet engine creating this aerosol, which is why we're home now and we're closed for business. But it is a massive aerosol generator, and a lot of people are already saying, I've had several people on Dental Tenor saying this should be the death of the Cavitron in hygiene and the high speed in dentistry. Some of the laser people are saying, but what do you think is going to be the major, how is this COVID-19 going to change dentistry? Like before 9/11, we didn't have the TSA. And now we still have it 20 years later. What do you think is going to be? Because I think teledentistry is going to be a bigger part of going forward.
I think, it's obvious. It's, in my opinion, it's teledentistry, right? Because you're going to find very quickly, I remember walking into, I volunteer in a clinic in Los Angeles, and they're full of unbelievable people. But right now there is 8 admins, 3 assistants, and me, right, when we see patients. Why on earth do you have 8 admins? So I think one of the things that doctors are going to realize, whether it be good or bad, is that they're going to find a new level, right? They're going to find something in themselves that they haven't had to do for a long time. They're going to find out how lean they can be. I remember somebody telling me in dental school that the average overhead of a practice is 70%. Are you shitting me? Like, how is that a thing, right? I get it. The majority of it is the salaries that you're paying workers. That's great, right? I'm not saying go out and fire people you don't need to fire, but at the same time, like, I think we're going to figure out very quickly what we can do. And I think one of the things that's going to really enable that is teledentistry. Thinking about that triage. Now, I don't think that teledentistry will have the same, like when we get back to normal, say tomorrow, we just all go back to normal. Once again, teledentistry wouldn't have taken hold. Right. But if you give it 6 months from now, when we go back, which I hope not, I hope that we, hydroxychloroquine works and, all this other magic stuff pops out and it's fantastic, or we get a miracle vaccine. That would be fantastic. But if it doesn't, and it's 6 months from now, every single doctor out there will have realized how much money they can actually make right off the bat from this type of teledentistry. I was just talking to a pediatric dentist the other day. And he was like, hey, I need to get onboarded. And I'm like, that's fantastic. Let's get you going. And while I was onboarding him, he's a pediatric dentist. He says, if I would have had this damn thing right today, which is literally today, he goes, I called back 10 to 12 people from just leaving voicemails. There's moms and dads who were concerned about their kids. 10 to 12 people he called back. He would have made close to $700 or $800 just from those appointments, from what insurance is now reimbursing. Now, look, that's not an insane game changer, but I'll tell you this right now, it'll keep your doors open, right? And if you're doing it anyways, why not bill for it, especially right now when people are actually reimbursing? So I think it's going to change the game.
And, people, my dad taught me as a little kid, never, ever shoot the messenger. I mean, like, he'd hear, somebody be bad-mouthing some politician, and my dad would say, now, 3 million people voted for that guy to go in there. I mean, why are you so mad at that guy? Address what they're saying. And on this healthcare thing, I mean, Bernie Sanders versus non is, when they were doing Obamacare, I mean, I was so depressed that 30% of the cost is just shoveling paperwork. And did they want to address anything like that? Oh, hell no. I mean, every time I talk to the Delta CEO, I love him. I mean, even Delta Arizona, I think Alan is the most respectable, honest man with integrity. He's a great guy. But it's like, so when someone comes in, they have to go to HR, cut down a tree, get a piece of paper, bring in the form. They come to the office, then they don't have their paper, so I have to have a human call your human. I mean, dude, Steve Jobs made this in 2007. why the hell can't you just automate this stuff? And when Bernie Sanders is saying, you know, about the student loan deals, you know, they all want to talk about how do we pay off their $1 trillion debt. Well, why don't you talk about why the hell did it cost $1 trillion to go to school? You know, and that's
Amen.
why people, it's kind of like the government, you know, they come over to your house, they pull out a baseball bat, they break your legs, and they say, we're going to buy you a free wheelchair. It's like, well, I wouldn't even need a free wheelchair if you didn't break my legs. I mean, address the cost. And dentistry, the cost is insane. It's insanely stupid.
Yeah.
It could all be automated. They should come in. If they have Delta, they should pull up their app, scan a deal, and instantly it says, hey, this is Ryan, and make sure that you're working on Ryan Hungate because he looks just like his brother Zach Hungate. And so the picture I got of you is with Ryan Hungate and Zach Hungate. Now, is that your brother, your cousin?
Cousin. So we originally started out like that, and then Zach went his separate ways. But that's where we all started. So I ended up taking it over and taking it to a new level. Yeah.
Well, I'll never forget that because my third son is Ryan and my fourth son is Zach. So for the record, I want to say that I named Ryan and Zach after the co-founders of Simplifeye. But anyway, and you were in that picture, you're with a Maverick. You're with Jim Harding, who's the Henry Schein Chief Executive Officer, Chief Technology Officer of Henry Schein One. And this article in Dental Tribune was talking about that. What do you think of the Henry Schein One strategy, and how important was this for you to merge it with Dentrix?
Yeah, so and that was our Apple Watch product. So we still are fantastic friends with everybody over there. We work very closely with Bruce Lieberthal. He's absolutely amazing. He's the CIO of Henry Schein. We work closely with Stanley, obviously, and Mark Malotek over there. Mark's the CSO. They're all amazing. And Jim just retired. I don't know if you saw that, but he just retired. Yeah, he did. And there's
how long ago?
They just probably within maybe a month max.
And what is
I would say.
What is your thoughts about that? I mean, there's all of these major CEOs hiring, and it's kind of making some people weird out. I mean, the CEO of Disney, Bill Gates. I mean, the list is very long. Why do you think? What is behind all this?
You know, I think that, well, when you get to the big, gigantic ones like the Bill Gates and the Bob Igers of the world, which I don't know, Bob Iger might be one of my top favorite CEOs. I think he's absolutely a genius. I always say that the best CEOs on earth are just the best storytellers, right? Think of Steve Jobs, think of Walt Disney himself. These guys told stories so grand that people are still doing their will when they're dead. That's pretty damn cool. So I think that they're all stepping down. I think Bob Iger was genius because he was like, look, if I step down, my stock's going to take a gigantic shit, and the market's taking a shit anyways. Might as well step down now. And why would I want to ding us later on? So I think that was a brilliant move by him. I think it's the same thing with Bill Gates. I think they're taking these steps down while going, hey, it's in the can. If I take a step down, it's going to drop 75 points that day no matter what. Who cares? I think that when it comes to Henry Schein, I think what they're doing is a little bit different tangent, but I think what they're doing and what their idea is very, very smart, right? You know, the dream is to try to not have this doing that doing this, and have it like, 25,000 different things running in your practice. Instead, you buy one package and you're done, right? Have they executed on that? No, right? That's why I exist. That's why about a bunch of other really good platforms out there exist, that are doing what they're doing. I always refer to the Dentrix, Eaglesoft, and the Open Dentals of the world. They're like tanks. They're hideous to look at, but would I like to go to war in them? Hell yeah. Right. So we're the type of people out there that can layer on top of those tanks and bring them into the 21st century, the 22nd century, call it. Right. So because I have this theory about these electronic health records, take the Dentrixes of the world. They have 35,000 people using that platform. Awesome. Right. They're a platform. They don't really treat it quite much like that, because I was thinking the ultimate platform is like a Google Maps or a Google in general. They give it away. Genius. Open Dental's doing it right. It's absolute genius. Give it away. be the platform. That's where the power is. When it comes to these large platforms, though, they're kind of clunky because electronic health records are unique. If I've got 35,000 people and overnight I change my user interface, right? People would literally die. Like imagine when Uber updated their interface. Nothing happened, right? People just adapted, they used it. If you update an electronic health record like Dentrix, Eaglesoft, or Open Dental, people would literally die. People would be like, oh, that's not a latex allergy. The person comes in, hits them with a glove, boom, dead, right? And on top of that, so what they do is instead of doing one large overhaul, what they do is they try to do small ones. Well, then you've got 10,000 people that are used to using it in a certain way. So then they backpedal it. I believe that these electronic health records will look the exact same, you quote me on this, 10 years from now. I bet they look the exact same, unless somebody comes in and upsets the apple cart. But I mean, you can ask any doctor, would you like to change your electronic health record tomorrow? It's like ripping your heart out, telling you to walk 10 steps and telling you there's a better heart around the corner.
I want to ask you another question because this is strange. I love my iPhone. I love Apple.
Yeah.
But it's only 15% of the market. It's a closed system. Dentrix, it's a closed system like Apple. But the fastest growing system is the open system, Open Dental. And I can tell you that Open Dental does not advertise, and their growth is crazy. And that's their greatest challenges is onboarding new programmers. So why do dentists love their closed system Apple, iPhone, and Mac, but they want Open Dental? I was 30 years on SoftDent. It was the biggest 400-pound gorilla back in 1987, and it just got to the point where it was just crashing and crashing all the time. And every time my guy would come out here, he'd say, I'll do anything if you switch to Open Dental. So finally we switched to Open Dental, and guess what? We did that a year and a half ago. It's never crashed one time. So why is open source software so awesome in dentistry, but not on a Macintosh? Because you're an Apple wearables guy.
I'm an Apple guy through and through, and I think it's brilliant what they do. Now, what's interesting is comparing Dentrix to Apple in their environment is a little bit different, right? So Dentrix definitely has their app store. It's fantastic, right? We're on there. We're on the marketplace right now. We don't use any of the integrations that they do right now, but I subscribe just in case I want to use it one day. We figure out ways that we can actually onboard with any software. So we work literally with everybody out there. So what they do, though, is they charge for people to actually be in that store. So I don't know if you know this or if anybody knows that out there, is that, they charge $30 to me. So if I charge, $10,000, $200,000, or if I charge $349 a month, they're going to charge me $30 per location per month. I lose that piece, right? Apple, on the other hand, it costs Snapchat $0 to be on that app store. It costs them $100 a year, right? So what's interesting is Apple is somewhat open source, right? You can use their Swift programming language. You can get on their app store for $100. Sure, they have to approve it, but what they're doing is they are approving it so that it doesn't have viruses. It doesn't have any, malware that it goes in there. Now, Google's a completely different thing. I can publish something on the Google App Store tomorrow, right? If I get it up, it's published instantaneously. Now they have to retroactively go back and take down all the tic-tac-toe apps that are actually funding terrorism out there. Apple, on the other hand, is proactive. They've got a better more scalable system. Dentrix, what they do is they try to kind of like get it from one end where they're charging the practice, and they try to get it from the software manufacturers. Now, what Open Dental did, and this is brilliant, they said, okay, cool. I know I'm always going to be ugly. I don't want to be something pretty. I'm going to leave this open, and I'm going to leave my community to make me better. That's genius, right? Because what happens then is they leave everything open. I come in there. I go, look, here's how I can plug in. I can grab scheduling. I can grab financial data. I can grab whatever I need to, and I'm going to make this solution better. So now if I'm looking, I know that all of them suck. I know that all of them are hideous, and they all do the exact same thing. So if that's the case, who can I go to get the best solutions that integrate the best and also have the dependency that the future will also be good? That's Open Dental, right? Does Dentrix and Eaglesoft have the ability to do this tomorrow? Absolutely, right? Why not make your system open, right? Give the power to the people. I would much rather have the platform anyways, because then what you can do is I can go to the doctor and say, hey, I have 35,000 people. I'm going to raise my price of my support package by $20 per month. would you stop using Dentrix tomorrow if they raised it $20 a month? No. And you'd make $1 billion more if you did that instead of going to me and charging me $30 a month. There's 200 people on their marketplace, right? Or 300, whatever it might be. It's nowhere near 35,000, right? That's why the platform is so powerful, why Google rules the world, because they understand what an open source platform can do. And Open Dental is doing the same thing.
Yeah, and this is why of all the millions of species that have ever lived on Earth, no one ever lives forever because it just doesn't work. I mean, when I was a little kid, the average age of Wall Street company was in their 60s. They were grandmas. And then when I got out of college, they were down to younger. Now the average age of the S&P 500 is just 20. And it's
Wow.
and in 10 years from now they're going to be teenagers, because old people, they just don't adapt. They just they're always looking out the window. They've always done it this way, and they never see that little rear view mirror, and they'll just get passed on the highway, and they'll never ever see it coming. But no, I've gone to Provo. I mean, I used to go up there. I flew down to Effingham with Eaglesoft, just begging them. I remember flying all the way to New York City to Stan Bergman and saying, what do I have to do? I mean, just these little easy things on Dentrix and Eaglesoft that everybody on Dental Town was talking about, and you could just tell. But the funniest thing was when I was talking to Pete Frechette, the CEO of Patterson in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then I realized, oh my God, he's writing it down with a pencil on a rainbow tablet, and there's no computer in this room. If I had any hair, I would have pulled it out, and I realized, no, you're not going to get old people to change. It's going to be the young Ryan Hungates. How old are you, Ryan?
36.
Yeah. Spend your time on telling a 30-year-old what your problems are. But if you're going to go talk to a bunch of 60-year-olds, you might as well just go all the way and just go to the cemetery with a 12-pack and start screaming at all the tombstones. And you'll probably get about the same effect. I can't believe that hour went by. That was the fastest hour in the world. By the way, did you find out they did figure out what a Hoosier was?
I know there's many theories behind it. What's your theory?
It's not a theory anymore. It's a fact. I listened to it on National Public Radio, NPR. This lady was doing a book on the railroad industry, and she wasn't looking for this. And they used to lay 5 miles of track a day. So when you're blasting across the country at 5 miles a day, when you get to a town, you don't have time to say, "Oh, my name's Ryan Hungate, and this is my friend Howard Ferran." And you would, if you all worked for Hoosier, you'd say, "I'm Hoosier's boy." And sure enough, a man named Hoosier laid a track straight across Indiana, and it was a total cultural norm that when you're working this hard and blasting through a town, you would just say, you're one of, whatever the owner's name was. If it was Ryan's company, I'm one of Ryan's boys. And a man named Hoosier laid a track across that. And I was so intrigued by that I actually bought the book because I knew my Uncle Mike, who loves the BMS Railroad collection, because my grandpa, he used to work on those roads. And people don't realize that Grandpa Howard Ferran, so my grandpa was Howard Taft Ferran. But when he had my dad, he didn't like President Taft anymore, so he named him Howard Eugene Ferran. And then my dad named me Howard Eugene Ferran II, which was so confusing that my dad, everyone called him by his middle name, Gene, and they called me a mistake. And but anyway, their dad used to work for the KDM Railroad, and when they would stand up by the track all day, and when someone came by and picked up a work crew, they might take him down the track for 3 months before they would go back home. And they used to thought they were lucky that they were gone for 3 months with that much work in a row. But big railroad boys, so I really looked into this because all those old Frans in Parsons, Kansas love that KDM Railroad sub. But sure enough, a man named Hoosier laid a train track across Indiana, and that is the end of that story. And you thought it was Who's Your Mama? And it was.
I did. I was always told as a kid that when they'd get in a wrestling match, and like back when they'd fight, somebody'd rip an ear off and say, "Hey, who's here?"
I never heard that one. But
That's
but
what I was
that would
told.
be horrible. Ryan, is there anything that you wanted to talk about that I didn't bring up, or that you were hoping to bring up?
No, just really want to get it out there that we're looking to help people out. Please give us a call. Let us know what we can do for you. I know it's a tough time out there. We'll get through this together. I absolutely promise that. And if you have any recommendations, I think some of the greatest companies on earth were built by those recommendations from the doctors out there. We're going to figure some stuff out through this tough time. So if they can reach out and let us know what they want from us, no pun intended, I'm all ears right now.
And my gosh, this is so much opportunity. I mean, whenever you turn the world upside down, you're going to shake out all kinds of new possibilities. We're not going to go extinct. We're going to beat this. This too shall pass. So what I need all my homies to do is, come on, dude, you got 8 years of college. Think this out. What is the problem? And let's make it better so that the next time a virus pandemic comes by, it'll be much easier to handle. And on that note, Ryan,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today and talking to my homies. And how's your mom and dad doing?
Doing fantastic. Just loving it. They're just in the other room.
Now,
Loving
is the Indiana or is it under lockdown like New York?
We just officially went under lockdown, I think, within the last 12 hours. So, which is, I think, a great thing. It's really good. But just remember, as a doctor, I always remind everybody, I know so many dentists that are out there just telling me, hey, we're closed for 4 weeks. Please, please, please see your emergency patients. Turn on your phones, turn on your live chat, turn on your teledentistry. Call us. We'll help you turn that on. But if we do not see those emergency patients, guess where they end up? They end up at the hospital, and then it's triple Yahtzee, and this thing goes even longer. We need to do our part to see those emergency patients before they get to that point, or at least help calm their fears and tell them, hey, this isn't quite an emergency, or maybe they can go grab some Oragel or whatever it might be. So make sure you're seeing your emergency patients and doing our part to take care of this problem.
And are you concerned that your mom's going to drink all your beer?
I have quite a bit of it here, so I think we're good. Indiana breweries are fantastic. I finally get to have some Three Floyds. It's so I've got quite the stock out there in the garage.
All right. Well, keep your parents safe, and thanks for everything you do for dentistry, and thanks for sharing your message today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.